Hello everybody, thank you for coming. My name is Ben McCormack. I'm the editor of food and restaurant magazine Square Meal and also of online restaurant and bar guide squaremeal.co.uk. I'm thrilled to have as my guest today a chef who is a celebrity not only in the United Kingdom but a superstar of truly global proportions, a man who has changed the way that we think about food across all levels of the production process, from how we grow it to how we cook it to how we eat it, through his restaurants, through his cookery books, and through his groundbreaking campaigns around childhood obesity and nutrition. So I hope you'll join me in giving a big welcome to the London Media Centre to Jamie Oliver.
Hi, guys. Hi, mate. How you doing?
I think the whole, you can call it an experiment if you like, was about how do you inspire young people that come from tough backgrounds. I mean, quite a large proportion of our students come from, you know, run-ins with the police or prison. So I think like pretty much one of the most consistent things in the world is that nearly all governments struggle to inspire young people in hard to reach, you know, from hard to reach backgrounds, you know. We're not very good at taking the people that really need the help and making them do things they could never dream of. So I'm really proud of it, you know, and it's still work in progress. It's still part of my life on a daily basis. My next, at this part of my life now, really, it's about facilitating and looking after new talent from Britain, but also, you know, I've in kitchens, even in London, it's like, you know, it's not British. Kitchens in Britain are not full of British chefs. They're full of...
You talk about this sort of global fan base that you have. Do you see yourself as a chef within a specifically British context, if you like, or...?
I think, like, you know, I think there's definitely... the exciting thing about Britain is that most of Britain has forgotten about Britain, you know, and, like, without boring you with
about
a whole...
British food or notions of Britishness?
Yeah, well, you know, every country in the world has amazing food. You've just got to find it. And certainly for Britain, you know, the history of Britain over the last 400 years has been, like, ridiculous. And, you know, certainly for the last... Well, the big food revolution in England's been the last 15 years, you know, where there's been food on all levels. We were always very good at cooking for the rich. But about, you know, sort of turn of the century, you know, 2 world wars, you know, we kind of lost our relationship with good local food and everything that we were good at. So, in a way, when I came out of college, when I graduated college, it was still the end of the dark cooking age. You know, we were famous around the world for really bad food. And to be honest, I've been doing TV now for 15 years, but for the first 7 years, every interview of every foreign country that I'd work in, half of it would be about how happy they were to have me and how much they loved the show, but then I had to explain all the bad English food, you know? And I think, you know, I think there's other countries similar, but what's been exciting is the kind of new wave, the new wave of thinking. The last 15 years, it's been cheaper than ever to travel around the world. So if you're a really keen baker or pastry chef or chef, you can go around the world, you can see, you can learn, you know, you can bring it all back home. I think, like, some of the cleverest people in cooking haven't been haven't been chefs per se. People like Heston Blumenthal, you know, Rose Gray, Ruth Rogers, they weren't formally trained chefs. So I think one of the problems of the new world of chefs is they feel they have to look and act and be trained in a certain kind of way. But the beautiful thing about the food industry is it can be anything. It could be a deli, it could be, you know, it could be like a little hole in the wall, it could be a posh restaurant, it could be a pizzeria, it could be anything. And it doesn't have to be flashy, you know. So there's been clever people. I mean, one of the most exciting things right now in Britain is like the street food, you know, and they'll cook one dish, homemade pickles, there'll be, I don't know, they'll be slow cooking some ribs and doing a kick-ass barbecue sauce, and they'll just do something fantastic that's really cheap and it's clean But probably the most exciting thing at the moment is street food, which I know is, hadn't really ever had, or certainly not for the last 30 years, hadn't really had a place in sort of serious food in Britain. When you're a parent, you become naturally conscious and protective about the environment that your kids grow up in. At the same time, life is beautiful, and if you want to take the best out of life, it's a beautiful, there are people in life that wake up every day with a smile on their face, rich and poor, more often poor than rich, I have to say, I think. Life is a beautiful opportunity. You don't want to be overcome with the miserable stuff. But I think I'm I'm exposed to a lot of information. And I guess the important thing is, are we changing fast enough, and are we robust in the way that we think about food?
What would the answer be?
It's just there's so many issues. Welfare standards, how we deal with water, how we feed a nation, budget, cash, how you make that relevant to kids in Brazil, as to England, as to Korea. You know what I mean? How every country has a completely different set of challenges. Things that really make a difference don't actually cost that much money. I'll give you an example. In England, I've got 7 centres around Great Britain, where if you're on the dole or you're on benefits, you can get free cooking lessons. You can go on a course, and you can learn to cook. You can learn to feed your family. You can learn to budget and save money. You can learn to shop properly, and we actually call it 10 recipes to save your life, because where we build these kitchens are areas of massive, massive poverty and bad health, massive bad health. So we put these kitchens in. Now they're fully booked 3 months in advance. We fund them in various ways, sometimes government, sometimes councils, sometimes the hospitals pay for them. And I'm not saying that's a solution, but it's one of a handful of things that really can make difference. The one thing I've learned is in countries like Britain, and that's a lot of the Western world, people really, really want good advice. They really want help. They really want the tools to make better choices. So putting it in their town is one of them. Ideally, putting it in school would be a really my dream would be that every 16-year-old child will leave school knowing how to cook, knowing how to budget, knowing how to look after themselves as well as their family and their future family. That would be a beautiful dream. I don't think it's that much to ask. Of course, I would dream. I'm sure people in the audience are thinking it should happen at home. Of course, it should happen at home. But anyone that works in social care knows the stretch of household. You've got an average family here that is rotten, and an average family here that's lovely. Like trying to make sure that something of course we want that, and we want to facilitate that. What is a luxury? Well, I don't know about your countries, but in Britain, a mobile phone is not a luxury. A car is not a luxury. Wearing brands on your feet and your clothes is not a luxury. Everyone has it. How can it be a luxury if everyone has it? So for me, I know I'm biased, but the education, trying to go to young kids and sort of say, listen, let me teach you to be streetwise about food, how to save money. Like if a recession comes along and you haven't got as much money, let me show you what the Spanish and the Turkish and the Italians do to cook amazing food that costs nothing. So I think the way to readdress that is, I think, education. Education sounds so boring to so many, but it's our job as adults to make it exciting and relevant. And look, if you went to 30 kids from look, in 15, you've seen it. The kids that we teach in 15 are inner city kids, and many of which were quite rough, that had problems with the law. There's lots of different stories, but they're not easy kids. To get them excited about food, that's our responsibility. we've had Chinese communities in Britain now for a long, long time. And what's really exciting about many of those communities is it used to be Chinese or it used to be Indian. And now what's happened in the last, only the last 3 years, is they've become very regional. So you get lots of different, you get specifically Szechuan or certain areas, Kerala Indian cooking going on. And I know that doesn't sound that new, but that really is, it was labelled as Chinese or Indian, and now it's much more specific. But now there's some great stuff happening there.
How can South Africa use your help in terms of people's health, school food, and helping your kids or their kids off the street? So in the spirit of what you've been doing.
Yeah, well, I think spirit's the right word, really. I'm one person from one small part of one small country. And obviously, I'm very lucky because I get to operate in publishing and broadcast in many countries. But really, it's the spirit that's important. The spirit of, making people happy, bringing people together through food. The fact that great food, amazing flavour, it doesn't have to be for the rich. That it's really about, getting closer, without sounding like a hippie, but I love hippies, so go for it, like soil, growing, and frankly, getting closer to nature. I mean, I've seen food change gangsters' lives, dare I say it, murderers' lives. I've seen small bits of good information that are relevant completely transform families of poverty's lives. So I wouldn't be as patronising to say I have any, direct solutions.